Everyone of working age must do 1 year of military training. Most people would be required to do so after completing secondary school. People who leave secondary school would do their year of military training at the same age as everyone else who graduates. Immigrants of working age that become citizens must do the initial year of military training within the first 3 years of being naturalized as a citizen. Anyone physically unable but mentally capable to serve in some capacity would receive some kind of parallel military training. They would be trained in roles to which they were suited. This might be coordination or administration. People without physical abilities might be very good at strategy or planning. Other roles would include remote piloting or monitoring security situations or signals intelligence. It could even be something more simple like secretarial or organizational positions. There are many roles that could help national defense that don't involve active physical combat. Everybody would receive some kind of training that could support the national defense of the country. Even conscientious objectors who resisted military service would need to complete training and serve in support roles or some other kind of role to help in national defense, even if that was not combat. The military must find appropriate training and tasks for anyone seeking to be disqualified for emotional, physical, mental, religious, medical, or any other reason. It must be near to impossible to avoid service so that all citizens participate. The bar for exemption must be exceptionally high for working age people, such as being terminally ill or in a coma. The intention is for everyone to be able to contribute to national security if needed in some way, shape, or form. Broad, compulsory military service such as this also serves the function of binding citizens together and will help to make society more harmonious internally. People will be forced to cooperate and work alongside others that they might not normally associate with in their everyday lives. They will come to understand other people's perspectives and understand the common interest they share in a peaceful, secure nation. There must also be a requirement for refresher training at least once every 5 years. This training can be shorter in duration. It is intended to make sure people do not forget essential skills. It's also a chance to get caught up with the latest military hardware and technology. Everyone must do refresher training throughout their working age years. It must be adjusted for changing ages of participants and the abilities of people as they change and progress through life. The intention is for the whole population to be prepared to defend the nation. Refresher training will help people stay up to date with the latest military hardware and technology. It will also keep people informed of strategies and tactics that are necessary on modern battlefields. People must be retrained in these strategies and technologies and tactics regularly to stay effective as a fighting force when called upon. The nation must maintain a core, permanent, professional military force of sufficient size to be a short-term deterrent against attack. The size of this force must be sufficient to make potential rivals question the wisdom of invading the country. But it must not be so large that rivals feel threatened by the existence of this standing army. A permanent professional military would be responsible for initial and ongoing military training of citizens. The professional military staff would need to keep up to date with the latest military knowledge and technology. They would need to train and retrain using the newest military technology, and they need to maintain their skills so that they are well prepared to train citizens in new techniques and technologies. This ensures the professional military is ready for combat with the latest technology and keeps up to date so that it can maintain its training to keep the rest of the population. Nations should prioritize maintaining production capacity and advanced prototypes of weapons rather than stockpiling military equipment. This will help ensure national security by being able to produce weapons when needed, but will not threaten national security by building up weapons and producing an arms race with rival nations. By having the ability to make weapons, but not actually have the weapons on hand, this will mean that rival nations will not be as threatened and will not respond by engaging in their own arms buildup. But by having production capacity ready to start immediately when needed, means the country can start producing weapons at short notice to defend the country. Having the capacity to build weapons is less threatening than actually having those weapons on standby. Production facilities must be geographically dispersed across the nation, and they must be in hardened spaces, such as deep underground or inside mountains, to make them hard to take out. Sufficient supplies of raw resources to start production immediately must be stored on site in sufficient quantities. These must be periodically replaced to ensure that the available supplies are fit for purpose when they're needed. Old supplies can be circulated out and used for other economic activities. For example, any metals stored on site might rust over time and need to be replaced, and it's better to use them in other productive activities and replace them with new supplies ready to produce weapons when needed. So this is a storage facility underground for supplies, basically, that could be used to produce weapons. And when they're not used within a sufficient time frame, they're simply used for something else, and the cycle continues, with fresh supplies always being on hand. Production facilities must also be connected using multiple redundant supply chains with supply lines that have the fewest possible vulnerabilities like bridges and tunnels. The country must maintain excess military production capacity. This is important because it makes it difficult for any rivals to take out or destroy and undermine the production capacity of a nation before invading. It should be very hard to take out all production facilities. Having redundant capacity also enables the country to start producing military hardware at a very high rate when it starts getting used and destroyed in combat situations. Rather than expend resources updating fleets of military hardware like replacing tanks and helicopters and planes, resources should instead go into maintaining production facilities at the highest possible level of readiness and to upgrade them to produce the latest technologically advanced versions of every piece of military hardware. Production facilities must be regularly upgraded so that they can produce the most technologically advanced equipment. Resources should be expended to keep the production facilities up to date rather than spending resources on keeping military equipment up to date. The priority should be on maintaining modern production facilities and prototypes rather than maintaining stockpiles of modern military equipment, because that equipment will become obsolete quite quickly, and all of the resources that went into it will then become a waste. Keeping production facilities up to date will save resources in the long run and make those resources available for other economic activities. Military factories should produce at rates well below their production capacity and employ a very few number of staff during peacetime. What little active production there is will focus on slowly prototyping more advanced versions of every piece of equipment and advancing their designs so that the prototypes are always on the cutting edge. Then, retooling the factories when needed so that they are ready to produce the most recent versions of each piece of equipment. Maintaining a core active production staff helps maintain the knowledge and skills necessary to train additional staff. This is important if production ever needs to increase rapidly. It's important that some staff are maintained that know how to produce the latest, most updated versions of every piece of hardware. They can then train new staff to fit into the increased production cycle if active combat ever occurs and a war needs more equipment. The few pieces of hardware that are produced can be used by the permanent professional military. They will use this equipment when training citizens as part of their compulsory military service. And one of the options for people who do not want to serve in the military in active duty roles could do their training in military production capacity. This ensures that part of the population is always ready to step into the factories that produce the goods needed for war. It will help maintain a pool of skilled workers to draw upon during a military mobilization. The aim is to have the capacity to rapidly increase production of the most modern military equipment, but at the same time, not waste resources stockpiling and maintaining military arsenals that are not being used.